guess I started getting interested in weather when I was very young, about in third grade. Prior to that time, I wanted to be a fireman, but one night when we were sitting and eating dinner, the lightning struck our house. And although the firemen showed up and all that stuff, I found myself far more excited about what was going on. My name is Peggy Lamone. I'm a scientist here at NCAR. I study various things about the atmosphere, including clouds, squall lines, hurricanes, the atmospheric boundary layer, and the interaction between the air and the surface, and how the surface heats and warms the air during the day. A squall line. What is a squall line? A squall line is a line of precipitating convection, or a line of showers, a line of thunderstorms. When you look at it on the radar, it looks pretty solid, or when you see it coming. And sometimes there's wind that comes out ahead of the squall line called a gust front. And you'll be nice and warm in the afternoon, and all of a sudden the temperature will cool off really fast, and the wind will pick up, and then it'll start raining very hard. And that's kind of what a squall line looks like. And over the land in mid-latitudes, you often have thunder with them. Over the ocean, you often could get squall lines with no thunder and lightning at all. We were talking earlier today about scary flights. There was one summer in 1974, we were flying in an Electra off the coast of West Africa. And it was our very first flight, and we were still trying to do things, figure out how to do things right. We've talked about it a lot in advance, but the weather's always unpredictable. And we were flying out at about 15,000, 16,000 feet. And all of a sudden, the airplane seemed to fall out of the sky. And I remember writing in my notes, we encountered a large downdraft. And the pilot came on and said that what had happened is the airplane had just iced up really fast. And we'd either were getting very close to a stall, or we'd gone into a stall. Unfortunately, once we went down to where it was above freezing, and the ice came off, and everything was safe. So that was certainly an exciting experience. Some of the things that might seem exciting, like flying at 100 feet above the ocean for hours, is kind of dangerous, but not so exciting.
This is an instrument that helps us take a picture of all the snow particles, the ice particles, the raindrops. But this does this by means of a laser. And you can see this is the laser source here. And this laser comes down this arm, and it goes through a prism and in here. And then it goes back, another prism, goes in here. And if you come around over here, you can see that this goes into it gets focused on a set of photodiodes.
The dropsonde tube is situated in the cramped baggage compartment they'd worked on during the modification phase. Its thick transparent cover and the special brace are designed to protect Hyper's interior and thin skin against atmospheric pressure.
Job fun. You know, the typical pilot is taught to, here's a weather condition that's potentially dangerous, and they're taught to fly around it and get as far away from it as they can. Our job is basically to get as close to it as we can so that we can study it. So it makes things interesting, but it's a very great challenge that we're faced with just about every flight.
And one of the first research flights I went on was with a fellow named Pat Kennedy for somebody else named Mel Shapiro. And we were looking for turbulence. So it was really funny talking to the air traffic control people and other pilots. Can you tell us, is it turbulent where you are? And you know, it was kind of the opposite. You know, normally they try to avoid it, but we were looking for it. But this airplane was used for that kind of research. And I flew through hurricanes basically off the coast of Mexico. We flew out of Acapulco. When you're flying in a hurricane, and we flew down at much lower than 5,000 feet, which they don't like to do anymore because it can be quite dangerous. But if you look down at the waves, they become a very, very light green, almost white, because all the waves are just turning into bubbles. And you know, it's just, you just see these, it's not bubbles so much as it's just water, drops of water being blown over the ocean by the wind, and you can hardly see the surface. And people who fly in hurricanes all the time get pretty experienced at estimating the wind speed by looking at the waves. I was flying through the eye wall, and I started having chest pain, and I put my hands up to the chest, my chest like this, you know, like they do in the movies, and the guy next to me looks at me and said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I think so." And he said, but I thought I was having a heart attack, and he looked at me and said, "Oh, that's good, I thought you were going to throw up." And the reason, and this is a common story in these hurricane flights that often take journalists along, and some of these people aren't very good at flying on planes, and there's story after story after story of some TV weatherman getting on one of the P3s to fly into it and to broadcast live, and all of a sudden they have to cut, and they have to run off the screen and throw up. But one of the most beautiful things you can see is flying into the eye of a hurricane. It's like being in a giant arena, which is lined with clouds on all sides. And it's absolutely beautiful. It's a wonderful experience. And you go through extreme turbulence when you're flying into the, you know, through the eye wall to just, you know, the air is just very still. And it gives you a chance to catch your breath before you venture back out of the hurricane through the eye wall again.